Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Now let's begin. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon at Riverside Park. The sun was warm. Children laughed on the swings. Families spread blankets under the trees for picnics. Joggers passed by with headphones in, lost in their own worlds. Near the park entrance, an elderly couple sat on their usual bench, feeding pigeons, just as they did every afternoon at 3 o'clock. The woman scattered breadcrumbs while her husband read the newspaper. Everything looked perfectly, beautifully normal. Officer Sarah Mitchell was walking her regular patrol route through the park when the call came through her radio. Unit 12. We have a report of 2 children unattended near the old oak tree in Riverside Park. Caller said they've been there for a while. Can you check it out? Sarah pressed the button on her radio. Copy that. On my way. She'd responded to calls like this before. Usually just kids waiting for parents who'd stepped away for a moment. Nothing urgent. But as Sarah approached the massive oak tree at the center of the park, something made her slow her steps. 2 little girls sat on flattened cardboard at the base of the tree. Both had bright red hair. The older one, maybe 10 years old, sat perfectly straight, her back rigid, hands folded in her lap. She looked too composed, too still. In her arms she held a smaller girl, probably 3 or 4 years old. And that's when Sarah noticed something that made her chest tighten. The younger child's face was swollen, not from crying, swollen. Her cheeks were puffy, her eyes tired and glassy. Her little belly looked distended beneath her oversized shirt. This child was sick, very sick. People walked past, a man with a dog, a woman pushing a stroller, teenagers on bikes. Some glanced at the girls, a few looked twice. But they all kept walking. Sarah approached slowly, not wanting to startle them. "Hey there," she said gently, crouching down a few feet away. "My name's Sarah. I'm a police officer. Are you girls okay?" The older girl looked up. Her eyes were old, far too old for a child's face. Guarded, watchful, like she'd learned early not to trust easily. "We're fine," she said quietly. Sarah's gaze moved to the younger child. She was barely moving, her breathing shallow. The swelling in her face and stomach was alarming. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Sarah asked the older girl. "Emily. And this is your sister?" Emily nodded, pulling the little girl closer protectively. "Lily." Sarah kept her voice gentle. "Emily, Lily doesn't look well. How long have you 2 been here?" Emily hesitated, like she was choosing her words very carefully. "A little while. Where are your parents?" Emily's face tightened. She looked down at Lily, brushing a strand of hair from her swollen face. When she spoke, her voice trembled, not from fear but from the weight of words she didn't fully understand. "My mom, she's not here anymore. She got sick and she didn't come back." Sarah felt her heart sink. "I'm so sorry, honey. What about your dad?" Emily's hands shook slightly as she held Lily. She took a breath, then spoke carefully, each word measured. "My dad, he put something in her. To help. But she got worse." Emily's voice cracked. "And then he told us to leave, to come here and wait." Sarah felt ice run through her veins. He put something in her. The words echoed in Sarah's mind. A sick child. A father who put something in her, then told them to leave. Every alarm in Sarah's training went off at once. She reached for her radio immediately, her hand steady even as her mind raced. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need paramedics and child services at Riverside Park, the old oak tree, immediately. 2 minors, younger one approximately 3 to 4 years old, appears critically ill. Possible medical emergency. Possible," she paused, choosing her words. "Possible intervention needed. Requesting immediate response." Emily's eyes went wide. "Are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. No, you're not in trouble." Sarah moved closer, her voice soft but urgent. "But Lily needs help right away. Real help. From doctors. And I'm going to make sure she gets it." Within minutes, the peaceful park transformed. Sirens wailed. Paramedics rushed over with equipment. The elderly couple feeding pigeons looked up, startled. People stopped what they were doing and stared. A paramedic knelt beside Lily, gently checking her pulse and temperature. Fever of 103, severe edema in face and abdomen. Breathing is labored. He looked at his partner with concern. We need to move now. As they carefully lifted Lily onto a stretcher, Emily tried to follow. I'm not leaving her. It's okay, the paramedic said gently. You can come with us. Sarah helped Emily into the ambulance, watching as the little girl, so small, so tired, climbed in without a word of complaint. As the ambulance doors closed, Sarah stood in the middle of the park. She looked at the people gathering, at the elderly couple who'd been sitting nearby all afternoon, at the joggers, at the families. And she thought, they were right here, in plain sight, and everyone just kept walking. The ambulance raced through the streets of Millbrook, sirens cutting through the quiet afternoon. Emily sat on the bench beside Lily's stretcher, holding her sister's small, swollen hand. Lily's eyes were half closed. Her breathing came in short, raspy sounds. A paramedic adjusted the oxygen mask over her puffy face. Hang in there, sweetheart, the paramedic said softly, checking her vitals. We're getting you help. Emily watched every movement with intense focus. The IV being inserted, the monitor beeping, the worried glances the paramedics exchanged. She'd been watching over Lily for so long, it was the only thing she knew how to do anymore. Sarah sat across from them, studying Emily carefully. Even now, even scared, the girl sat perfectly straight. Her back didn't touch the seat. Her hands were folded except for the one holding Lily's, like she was trying very hard to be good, to be proper, to not cause trouble. Emily, Sarah said gently, I need you to help me understand what happened. Can you tell me more about what your dad did? Emily looked at Lily, then back at Sarah. She spoke slowly, choosing each word with great care. Lily got sick, really sick. Her face started getting puffy, her stomach too. And Dad, he didn't know what to do. Did he take her to a doctor? Emily shook her head. We don't have money for doctors. Dad said we couldn't go. Sarah's chest tightened. So what did he do instead? He looked things up on his phone. He found something that was supposed to help. Emily's voice trembled. He mixed things together. He said it would make the swelling go down, make her better. What kind of things? I don't know. It was in a cup. It smelled strong, like medicine, but different. Sarah kept her voice calm even as alarm bells rang in her head. And what happened when he gave it to Lily? Emily's eyes filled with tears. She cried. She said it hurt her throat. And then she got worse. The swelling got worse. She stopped eating. She just laid there. And then your dad left? Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. He got really scared. He kept saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And then he told us to go to the park, to wait under the tree, that he'd figure it out and come back. How long ago was that? I think 3 days? Maybe 4? I stopped counting. Sarah felt her throat tighten. 4 days. These children had been alone for 4 days while Lily got sicker and sicker. Emily, did your dad say where he was going? No, he left. Emily's voice broke. I kept thinking he'd come back, that maybe he went to find help, but he didn't. And Lily kept getting worse, and I didn't know what to do. The ambulance pulled into Mercy Hospital. The back doors flew open. Medical staff rushed Lily inside on the stretcher. Emily ran alongside, refusing to let go of her hand. In the emergency room, doctors swarmed. Dr. Pemberton, the head pediatrician, took one look at Lily, and his expression darkened. Female, approximately 3 to 4 years old, high fever, severe edema, respiratory distress. Possible toxic ingestion. He examined Lily quickly. Get me a full toxicology screen, blood work, kidney and liver function tests. Page Pediatric ICU immediately. A nurse gently pulled Emily aside. Sweetie, the doctors need room to work. You can watch from right here, okay? Emily pressed herself against the observation window, her small hands flat against the glass. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just watched with that same intense adult focus. Sarah stood beside her. She pulled out her phone and called child services. This is Officer Mitchell. I need immediate response at Mercy Hospital. 2 minors, no guardian present. Younger child in critical condition. Father missing. Left them alone approximately 4 days ago after allegedly administering an unknown substance to the younger child. She paused, looking at Emily's reflection in the glass. And I need someone who understands that this little girl has been trying to save her sister all by herself. Margaret Hayes arrived within 30 minutes. She was in her 50s, with kind but sharp eyes. Someone who'd seen too many hard cases. Officer Mitchell? Sarah turned. That's Emily Bennett. Her sister Lily is in there. Mother is deceased, father is missing. Margaret looked at Emily, small, exhausted, still standing at that window. Her heart broke. What are we dealing with? I'm not sure yet, Sarah said quietly. But whatever it is, it's been happening for a long time, and no one noticed. Margaret approached Emily gently. Hi, Emily. My name is Margaret. I'm here to help you and Lily. Emily didn't take her eyes off the window. Is she going to die? Margaret's voice was soft. The doctors are doing everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen. I tried to keep her safe, Emily whispered. I gave her water. I kept her in the shade. I told her stories when she cried. Margaret knelt beside her. You did everything a 10-year-old could possibly do, more than you should have had to. Emily finally looked at her, tears streaming down her face. Everyone keeps asking what my dad did, but nobody's asking why we were alone in the first place. The words hit Margaret like a freight train. Because Emily was absolutely right. Everyone wanted to know what happened, but no one was asking how 2 children could sit in a public park for days, one of them desperately ill, and no one stopped to help. Within an hour, Riverside Park had transformed into a scene of urgent activity. Yellow police tape stretched around the area near the old oak tree. Officers moved through the grass, photographing the flattened cardboard, the empty water bottles, the small backpack with crackers inside. News vans lined the street, their cameras pointed at the tree, and people, dozens of them, gathered behind the tape, watching, whispering, recording on their phones. Detective Laura Brennan arrived and immediately took control. She was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed and direct. She'd worked hundreds of cases, but something about this one already felt different. She walked over to the young officer securing the scene. What do we know? 2 minors found here approximately 90 minutes ago. Younger one transported to Mercy Hospital in critical condition. Older sister, Emily Bennett, age 10, says their father left them here 3 to 4 days ago after giving the younger one some kind of homemade remedy. Laura's jaw tightened. And the father? David Bennett, 38, no criminal record. Mother deceased approximately 10 months ago. Alert's been issued. Laura looked around the park, at the playground still full of children, at the families having picnics, at the elderly couple still sitting on their bench near the entrance looking shaken. How many people come through this park every day? Hundreds. It's one of the most popular spots in town. Families, joggers, seniors. This oak tree is right in the center, you can't miss it. Laura knelt down and examined the cardboard where the girls had been sitting. It was worn, compressed from days of use. There were juice stains, a small blanket, signs that someone had been living here. Right here, in the most public spot in the entire park. I want everyone who was in this park over the past week interviewed, Laura ordered. I want to know who saw these girls and when. As officers began canvassing, people started coming forward. A middle-aged man stepped up. I jog through here every morning. I think I saw those girls a few days ago. Right there under that tree. Did you speak to them? No. I figured their parents were nearby. Maybe in the restroom or getting food. A woman with a dog. I walk through here twice a day. I remember seeing the older girl. She always sat so still. I thought it was odd, but I didn't want to intrude. A teenager. I saw them yesterday. The little one looked really sick, but I thought someone was watching them, like someone had to be, right? One by one, people confessed. They'd seen. They'd noticed. They'd wondered. But they'd all kept walking. The elderly woman who'd been feeding pigeons approached, her hands trembling. My husband and I, We sit on that bench every single afternoon. We've been seeing those girls for days. Laura looked at her. Did you speak to them? The woman's eyes filled with tears. No, we thought someone was taking care of them. We thought maybe they were just playing while their parents were nearby. Her voice broke. We never thought they were alone. Her husband stood beside her, his face pale. We should have asked, we should have stopped, but we assumed. Laura felt something heavy settle in her chest. Not anger, something worse. Understanding, because she knew exactly what they meant. How easy it was to assume. To think someone else will handle it. Someone else is watching. Her phone buzzed. It was Margaret from the hospital. Laura, it's Margaret. Lily's condition is critical. Severe malnutrition, untreated infection, and fluid retention causing the edema. The doctors say she has signs of kidney stress, possibly from whatever substance the father gave her, but also from prolonged neglect. Laura closed her eyes briefly. Will she survive? They think so. But if Emily hadn't been caring for her these past few days, if no one had found them when they did. Margaret didn't finish the sentence. What about Emily? Exhausted, malnourished, and carrying guilt that's breaking my heart. Margaret paused. Laura, this isn't just about the father. This is about every person who walked past those girls and did nothing. Laura looked at the crowd gathering. I'm starting to see that. She hung up and addressed the officers. I want a full timeline. I want to know how this family got here, where they lived, when the mother died, when they lost their home. Everything. One officer raised his hand. Detective, what exactly are we looking for? Laura looked at the oak tree, then at the people behind the tape. Ordinary people, good people, who'd simply walked past two children in crisis because they assumed someone else was paying attention. We're looking for all the moments someone could have helped, Laura said quietly, and didn't. As the afternoon wore on, a reporter managed to get close enough to ask a question. Detective, can you confirm that two children were abandoned here? Laura turned to face the camera. What I can confirm is that two children were living in this park, in plain sight, while hundreds of people walked past every single day. The question you should be asking isn't just who abandoned them, it's why no one stopped. The reporter paused, surprised. Are you saying the community is responsible? I'm saying, Laura said carefully, that when a child is suffering in public and everyone assumes someone else will help, we all share that responsibility. The camera kept rolling, but Laura walked away. Because the truth was uncomfortable, and the people of Millbrook were just starting to realize it. Near the park entrance, someone murmured, almost like an excuse, almost like a confession. I thought someone was taking care of them. But no one had been. And now, two children were paying the price. 1 year earlier. The Bennett apartment was small but warm. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a table just big enough for 4. Sunlight streamed through the windows on a Saturday morning. Rebecca Bennett stood at the stove, her red hair, the same vibrant shade as her daughter's, pulled back in a loose bun. She hummed softly as she made pancakes, flipping them with practiced ease. Emily sat at the table, coloring in a workbook. Lily was in her high chair, banging a spoon and giggling. Almost ready, Rebecca said, sliding pancakes onto plates. Emily, can you get the syrup, honey? Emily hopped up. Can I have chocolate chips on mine? Just a few, Rebecca smiled. David walked in from the bedroom, pulling on his work jacket. He looked different then, younger, lighter. There was warmth in his eyes. He kissed Rebecca on the cheek. Smells amazing. Sit. You need to eat before your shift. David sat down next to Emily and tapped Lily's nose gently. How's my little troublemaker? Lily squealed with delight, reaching for him. For that moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully ordinary. Rebecca knew things no one else did. She knew exactly when Lily would wake up at night. She knew which drawer held the children's medicine. She knew Emily's teacher's name, the school's phone number, how to stretch $30 into a week's worth of meals. Rebecca was the invisible map of their family. She held all the knowledge that kept everything running smoothly. And when she got sick, she took that map with her. It started with a cough. Just a small one, It's nothing, Rebecca insisted when David suggested she see a doctor. Just a cold, I'll be fine. But it wasn't nothing. Within 3 weeks, the cough got worse. She couldn't catch her breath. She started losing weight rapidly. One morning, David found her collapsed in the bathroom, too weak to stand. "We're going to the hospital," he said, his voice tight with fear. "Right now." At the emergency room, doctors admitted her immediately. Severe pneumonia. They kept her for tests, then treatment, then longer. Emily and Lily stayed with Mrs. Patterson, a kind neighbor. But Emily lay awake every night, staring at the ceiling, wondering when Mama would come home. David tried to hold everything together. He worked. He visited the hospital twice a day. He paid bills he couldn't afford with credit cards that were maxing out. The medical costs piled up. Even with insurance, the expenses were crushing. David started missing shifts to be at Rebecca's bedside. His boss was understanding at first, then less so. "David, we need reliable people. If you can't be here consistently, I'll be here, I promise." But he couldn't be everywhere at once. 4 weeks after Rebecca was admitted, David came home alone. Emily was sitting on Mrs. Patterson's couch when he walked in. She took one look at his face, pale, hollow, destroyed, and she knew. "Daddy," she whispered. David sank to the floor and pulled her into his arms. He couldn't speak. He just held her while his shoulders shook with silent sobs. Lily didn't understand. She kept asking, "Where's Mama? When is Mama coming home?" Emily looked at her father's broken face and understood something that would change her forever. Mama wasn't coming home. Not ever. The funeral was quiet. A few neighbors attended, some of David's co-workers. The girls sat in the front row, Lily on David's lap, Emily holding his hand. David stared at the casket and felt the world crumble around him. How do I do this alone? Rebecca knew everything. How do I be both of us? He didn't have an answer. After the funeral, David sat in the dark living room for hours. Days. He stopped answering his phone, stopped opening mail, stopped doing anything except staring at the walls where Rebecca's photos hung. Emily learned quickly. She made sandwiches for Lily. She turned on cartoons to keep her quiet. She didn't ask Daddy for things anymore because he didn't seem to hear. The eviction notice came 3 months later. David held it in his hands, reading the same words over and over, but they wouldn't make sense. Final notice. 30 days to vacate. "We'll figure it out," he said to Emily, his voice empty. "We'll find somewhere else." But there was nowhere else. No family nearby, no savings left. Everything had gone to medical bills. No job to fall back on. He'd been let go 2 weeks ago for too many absences. Rebecca had known how to ask for help. She'd known which agencies to call, which neighbors to lean on, which forms to fill out. But Rebecca was gone, and David didn't know how to navigate a world without her. The collapse of David explains his choices. It doesn't correct them. The scene fades. David sitting alone in the dark apartment. Rebecca's coffee mug still on the counter, her sweater still hanging on the chair. The map of their family, gone forever. 5 months after Rebecca's death. David sat in his car in a grocery store parking lot, staring at the eviction notice. The paper trembled in his hands. Final warning. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. In the back seat, Emily had created a nest of blankets for herself and Lily. Lily was asleep, her thumb in her mouth. Emily was awake, watching her father with worried eyes. "Daddy, are we going inside?" David didn't answer immediately. His mind felt like static, loud but empty. He'd stopped looking for work weeks ago. Couldn't focus during interviews. Couldn't remember why he'd walked into rooms. "Not today, sweetheart. But we need food." David looked at the crumpled bills in the cup holder. $6. That was all. "Tomorrow," he said quietly. "We'll go tomorrow." But tomorrow never seemed to come. When the sheriff arrived to enforce the eviction, David was sitting on the floor of the empty apartment, surrounded by boxes he hadn't packed. "Mr. Bennett, I'm sorry, but you need to leave now." David stood slowly, like his body weighed 1,000 pounds. He gathered what little they had. 2 duffel bags, some clothes, Lily's stuffed rabbit. "Where will you go?" the sheriff asked, not unkindly. David didn't answer because he didn't know. They went to a shelter on the east side. It had strict rules. No staying during the day, 2-week maximum, check in by 7 p.m., or lose your bed. David tried, but some days he'd lose track of time completely, sitting on a bench somewhere, staring at nothing, unable to move. Emily became the one who watched the clock, who made sure they arrived on time, who kept Lily quiet so they wouldn't get in trouble. She was 10 years old, but she'd learned to think like someone much older. One night they were turned away. David had been late, forgot what day it was, forgot where he was supposed to be. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett," the coordinator said. "Rules are rules. Your beds were given to another family." David stood there holding Lily, Emily beside him. He wanted to argue, to explain, but no words came. They walked to Riverside Park. It was quiet, safe. The old oak tree in the center provided shade. David found a spot at its base. "We'll stay here tonight," he told the girls. "Just one night, until I figure something out." But one night became 2, then 3, then a week. Emily did what she could. She filled water bottles at the park fountain. She bought bread with the few dollars David occasionally gave her. She kept Lily as clean as possible in the public restroom. She never complained, never cried where anyone could see. Then Lily got sick. It started with a fever. Then her face began to swell, just slightly at first. Then her stomach started to distend. Emily begged her father, "Daddy, something's wrong with Lily. She needs a doctor." David's eyes were wild, panicked. "We can't afford a doctor. They'll ask questions. They'll take you both away from me." "But she's really sick." "I'll fix it," David said desperately. "I'll fix it, I promise." He pulled out his phone, battery nearly dead, and searched frantically. Natural remedies for swelling in children, how to treat kidney problems at home, what to do when you can't afford medical care. He found websites promising solutions, easy, natural, safe, written by people who claimed doctors didn't want you to know these secrets. David went to a dollar store and bought vinegar, herbs, and other ingredients. He mixed them together following instructions from a blog, not seeing the tiny disclaimer at the bottom, not intended to replace professional medical advice. "Lily, baby, drink this," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "It'll help the swelling go down, I promise." Lily took a sip and immediately started crying. The mixture burned her throat. No, it's okay." David's hands shook. "Just a little more, please." But Lily turned away, sobbing. Over the next 2 days, Lily got worse. The swelling increased. She stopped eating, stopped playing, just lay on the cardboard, barely moving. David sat with his back against the oak tree, staring at nothing. His mind was fracturing under the weight of grief, failure, and terror. "I'm making her worse. I'm killing my daughter. Rebecca, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this without you." And then, on the 3rd morning, something inside David broke completely. His mind simply shut down, a desperate escape from unbearable reality. He stood up, looked at Emily and Lily, his daughters, his responsibility, his failure. "Go to the park," he said, his voice distant, disconnected. "Stay under the tree, wait here. I'll figure it out." And then he walked away, not planned, not decided. His body just moved while his mind went somewhere else entirely. The collapse of David explains his choices. It doesn't correct them. Emily woke up an hour later. "Daddy?" She looked around. He wasn't there. "Daddy!" she called louder, but he was gone. And Emily was alone with her dying sister. 3 days after David disappeared, Emily sat in a quiet room at Mercy Hospital. The walls were pale yellow. There was a box of tissues on the table she hadn't touched. A woman sat across from her, Margaret Hayes, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. "Emily," Margaret said softly, "I know you've answered a lot of questions already, but I need to understand what happened so we can help you and Lily. Is that okay?" Emily nodded, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Even now she sat perfectly straight. Tell me about what your dad gave Lily. Do you remember? Emily's voice was quiet, measured, like she was selecting each word with great care. Lily's face started getting puffy, and her stomach. Dad said it was something serious, that she needed medicine. But he didn't take her to a doctor? Emily shook her head. We didn't have money. And Dad said, he said if we went to the hospital, they'd ask questions, they'd take us away from him. Margaret wrote carefully, keeping her expression neutral. So what did he do? He looked things up on his phone. He found something that was supposed to help. He mixed things in a cup. Emily paused. It smelled really strong. Do you know what was in it? No. He just said it would make the swelling go down, make her better. And what happened when Lily drank it? Emily's eyes filled with tears. She cried, she said it hurt, and after that she got worse. The swelling got worse. She stopped eating. She just laid there. Margaret leaned forward slightly. Emily, I know this is hard, but I need to ask. When you told Officer Mitchell that your dad put something in her, what did you mean? Emily looked confused. I meant he gave her the medicine. The stuff he mixed. He put it in her mouth so she'd swallow it. Not anything else? No, just the medicine. Emily's voice trembled. Why? Did I say it wrong? Margaret's chest tightened. This child had been choosing her words so carefully, trying so hard to explain something she barely understood, and adults had immediately assumed the worst. No, sweetheart, you didn't say it wrong. I just needed to understand what you meant. Emily wiped her eyes. I always choose my words carefully. Nobody listens when kids don't. The statement hung in the air, heartbreaking and true. Emily, Margaret said gently, has anyone ever hurt you or Lily? Has your dad ever been mean to you on purpose? Emily shook her head firmly. No, he's just sad. Really, really sad. After Mama died, it's like part of him died too. And when did he leave? 3 days ago. Maybe 4. I stopped counting. Emily looked down at her hands. He told us to stay under the tree, that he'd figure out what to do and come back. But he didn't come back, and Lily kept getting sicker, and I didn't know what to do. What did you do? I gave her water. I tried to keep her in the shade. I told her stories. Emily's voice broke. But I couldn't make her better, and people kept walking past, lots of people. And I kept thinking someone would stop. Someone would ask if we needed help. But no one did? Emily shook her head. I think they thought someone else was watching us, that we were okay. Margaret felt something crack in her chest. You're right. That's exactly what they thought. There was a knock on the door. Officer Sarah Mitchell stepped in. Margaret, can I speak with you? Margaret excused herself and stepped into the hallway. We located David, Sarah said. He was found at a homeless shelter 60 miles north. He's confused, disoriented, barely knows his own name. Is he dangerous? No. He's broken. Sarah looked back through the window at Emily. That little girl still loves her father, even after everything. I know, Margaret sighed. Sarah, this isn't what we thought it was. The father didn't hurt Lily deliberately. He gave her some kind of homemade remedy that made things worse, but the real damage was done over months. Neglect, poverty, untreated illness. Sarah crossed her arms. So what are we charging him with? Child endangerment, medical neglect, abandonment. Margaret paused. But I'm not sure punishment is what this family needs most. Then what do they need? Margaret looked at Emily through the window, small, exhausted, still sitting perfectly straight like she'd been taught to be good, to not cause trouble. They need what they've needed all along, Margaret said quietly. Someone to see them, someone to stop, someone to care. Inside the room, Emily sat alone, still choosing her words carefully, still trying so hard to explain a world that had failed her long before her father ever did. And the hardest truth of all was this: she was right. Everyone kept asking what her father did, but no one was asking why 2 children had been invisible for so long. Detective Laura Brennan sat at her desk, reviewing the growing file on the Bennett family. David Bennett's driver's license photo stared back at her. Taken 2 years ago, before loss, before collapse, before everything fell apart. She picked up her phone. This is Detective Brennan. I need an expanded alert for David Bennett. Last known location. Homeless shelter, 60 miles north. Subject is experiencing severe mental health crisis. Approach with care, not force. She hung up and turned to Officer Carter, who'd just returned from interviewing witnesses. What did you find? Carter flipped open his notepad. David Bennett, 38. Wife Rebecca died 10 months ago from pneumonia. Medical bills bankrupted them. Lost his job 7 months ago. Evicted 5 months ago. After that, they disappeared. What about family, friends? Rebecca's parents are deceased. David's family is out of state. He hasn't contacted them in over a year. Neighbors said after Rebecca died, David withdrew. Stopped talking to people. Stopped answering his door. Laura shook her head. So he was completely isolated. Completely, and here's what's interesting. Emily was enrolled at Lincoln Elementary. When she stopped showing up 3 months ago, the school filed a report with the district office. And it got buried in paperwork. No one ever followed up, no home visit, no phone calls, nothing. Laura felt anger rise in her chest. So they vanished, and the system just let them. Not just the system, Carter said. We've interviewed over 40 people who frequent Riverside Park. At least 20 of them recognized Emily and Lily from photos. They'd seen them multiple times over the past few weeks. And none of them stopped? No, ma'am. Most said the same thing. They assumed someone was watching the girls, that the parents were nearby. Laura stood and walked to the window overlooking Main Street. How does that happen? How do 2 children sit in the most public park in town, one of them visibly sick and everyone just walks past? Carter was quiet for a moment. Because everyone assumed someone else would handle it. Laura turned back. That phrase keeps coming up. Someone else will take care of it, like it's a shield against responsibility. Her phone rang. It was Dr. Pemberton from the hospital. Detective, I'm sending over Lily's complete medical evaluation. You need to see this. What did you find? Lily has severe chronic malnutrition, untreated bacterial infection, and acute kidney stress causing fluid retention. That's why she was so swollen. The substance her father gave her was a dangerous mixture of herbs and vinegar that made things worse, but it's not what nearly killed her. Laura's jaw tightened. What do you mean? This child has been systematically neglected for months. The swelling, the illness, these developed slowly over time. If she'd received proper medical care weeks ago, none of this would have happened. So the homemade remedy was just the final crisis point, yes, but the real damage was done long before that. Dr. Pemberton paused. I'm writing this in my report. The body didn't fail all at once. It was giving up while the world walked past. Laura closed her eyes. Thank you, doctor. She hung up and looked at Carter. This case isn't about one man making one bad decision. It's about a family falling apart in slow motion, while an entire community looked the other way. So what do? We document everything, every missed opportunity, every person who saw and didn't act, every system that failed. Laura picked up the file. And we make sure the court sees the whole picture, not just the easy answer. Later that afternoon, Laura stood at a press conference outside the police station. Reporters crowded forward with microphones and cameras. Detective Brennan, can you confirm that David Bennett has been located? Yes, he was found at a homeless shelter and is currently in custody. Will he be charged? Yes. Child endangerment, medical neglect, and abandonment. Do you believe he intended to harm his children? Laura paused. This was the moment. The moment to give them the easy story. The villain, the victims, the simple narrative. But she thought about Emily's words. Everyone keeps asking what my dad did. But nobody's asking why we were alone in the first place. I believe, Laura said carefully, that David Bennett made catastrophic decisions while experiencing severe mental illness. But I also believe this family was failed by more than one person. What do you mean? I mean that over 40 people saw these children in that park. Some of them multiple times, and every single one assumed someone else was taking care of them. Laura looked directly at the cameras. This isn't just about one father. This is about a community that walked past two children in crisis because it was easier to assume than to act. The questions erupted, but Laura walked away because the truth was uncomfortable, and Millbrook was just beginning to face it. By the next morning, the story had exploded across Millbrook and beyond. Dudu sisters found living in park. Father arrested after giving child dangerous remedy. Community asked, why didn't anyone stop? At the corner cafe on Main Street, the television played the morning news on repeat. People gathered around, coffee cups in hand, watching footage of the park, the hospital, David being led away in handcuffs. I can't believe this happened here, one woman said, shaking her head. Right in our park. How could a father do that to his own child? Another added. An older man at the counter spoke quietly. The detective asked a good question yesterday. How many of us saw those girls and did nothing? The cafe went silent. I walk through that park 3 times a week, a younger woman said defensively. I never saw them. I did, said a man near the window. He looked down at his coffee. Last week, the older girl was sitting under that tree with the little one. I remember thinking it was odd, but I was late for work, so I kept walking. Another voice. I saw them too. The little one looked sick, but there were other people around. I figured someone was watching them. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding and guilt. Online, the comment sections were brutal. The father should never see those children again. He was grieving and mentally ill. Where was the support system? Mental illness doesn't excuse child endangerment. But where were the neighbors? The teachers, the community, everyone failed these kids. At Mercy Hospital, Emily sat beside Lily's bed. Lily was awake now, her face less swollen, her eyes brighter. The IV fluids and antibiotics were working. She looked more like a child and less like a medical emergency. Emmy, Lily whispered. Yeah, Lil. Where's Daddy? Emily's throat tightened. She'd been dreading this question. He's getting help, grown-up help. Is he coming back? I don't know. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I miss Mama. Emily climbed carefully onto the bed and held her sister. I know, me too. A nurse came in to check Lily's vitals. She smiled warmly at both girls. You're doing so much better, Lily. The doctors are very pleased. After the nurse left, Emily stared out the window. She could see the park from here, the trees, the playground, people walking their normal paths. And she wondered how many of them had walked past her and Lily, how many had seen and assumed, how many had kept walking because it was easier than stopping. Down the hall, Margaret Hayes was on the phone with the district attorney's office. Yes, I understand the charges are serious, Margaret said. But I'm asking you to consider the full context. David Bennett is not a predator. He's a man who suffered complete psychological collapse after losing his wife, his job, and his home. The DA's voice was firm. That doesn't change the fact that he endangered his children. I'm not saying it does. I'm saying that if we only punish him without addressing how this family fell through every safety net, we've learned nothing. What are you proposing? Mandatory psychiatric treatment as part of his sentencing, supervised reunification if appropriate, and a community review of how we identify and help families in crisis before they reach this point. There was a pause. I'll consider it, but the community is angry, Margaret. They want accountability. They should be angry, Margaret said, but not just at David Bennett. They should be angry at themselves. She hung up and walked back to Lily's room. Emily was still sitting by the window, watching the park. Emily, Margaret said gently, how are you doing? Emily didn't look away from the window. Everyone's talking about my dad like he's a monster. I know. People are scared and angry. They want someone to blame. But he's not a monster. He's just broken. Emily finally looked at Margaret, and nobody helped him before he broke. Margaret sat down beside her. You're absolutely right, and that's what I'm trying to make people understand. Will it work? Margaret was quiet for a moment. I don't know, but I'm going to try. Emily turned back to the window. I keep thinking about all those people in the park. How many of them saw us? How many could have stopped? Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. They're not monsters either. They just didn't think it was their job. Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. This 10-year-old girl understood something most adults refuse to see, that the greatest harm often comes not from cruelty, but from comfortable indifference. "Emily," Margaret said softly, "you're one of the wisest people I've ever met." Emily shrugged. "I just pay attention. Someone has to." And in that simple statement was the heartbreak of her entire childhood. She'd learned early that if she didn't watch, didn't notice, didn't take care of everything herself, no one else would. It was a lesson no child should ever have to learn. But Emily had learned it well, too well. Dr. Richard Pemberton sat in his office at Mercy Hospital, reviewing Lily Bennett's complete medical file for the 4th time. He'd been a pediatrician for 29 years. He'd seen neglect before. But something about this case demanded he get every detail exactly right. The numbers told a story that went far beyond one dangerous mixture. Lily was severely malnourished. Her weight was in the 3rd percentile for her age. She had untreated bacterial infections in multiple sites. Her kidney function tests showed stress and early damage. Blood work revealed chronic vitamin deficiencies and anemia. The fluid retention, the swelling that had made her face and abdomen distend, was her body's response to prolonged malnutrition and infection. Her kidneys were struggling to process waste. Her liver was stressed. And yes, the homemade remedy her father had given her was dangerous. The mixture of herbs, vinegar, and other ingredients had caused chemical irritation to her throat and stomach. It had made things worse, but it hadn't caused the underlying crisis. That had been building for months. "Doctor." Pemberton picked up the phone and called Detective Brennan. "Detective, this is Dr. Pemberton. I'm sending over my complete report on Lily Bennett, but I wanted to discuss the findings with you first." "I'm listening." "The substance David Bennett gave his daughter was harmful and showed extremely poor judgment, but it's not what nearly killed her." He paused. "Lily has been suffering from severe chronic neglect for months. Malnutrition, untreated infections, lack of basic medical care. The swelling wasn't caused by the remedy. It was caused by kidney and liver stress from prolonged illness." Laura was quiet for a moment. "So, the homemade treatment was just the final crisis that brought her to medical attention. But the real damage was done slowly, over time, while she was living in plain sight." "How long has she been this sick?" "Based on her lab work and physical findings, I'd say at least 3 to 4 months. Possibly longer." Laura felt her chest tighten. 3 to 4 months, while they were living in that park. "Exactly. Doctor, can I ask you something? If someone had brought Lily to you even 2 months ago, could this have been prevented?" "Absolutely. With proper nutrition, basic antibiotics, and monitoring, she would have recovered fully. This didn't have to happen." Dr. Pemberton looked at his computer screen, at the report he was writing. "Detective, I'm including a statement in my official findings. I want to make sure the court understands this clearly." "What does it say?" Dr. Pemberton read aloud. "This child's critical condition was not the result of a single incident. It was the result of prolonged, systemic neglect. Not just by her father, but by every system and individual who had the opportunity to intervene and did not. The body didn't fail all at once. It was giving up while the world walked past." The line was quiet. "That's powerful, Doctor," Laura said finally. "It's the truth. I think people need to hear it." After hanging up, Dr. Pemberton walked down to Lily's room. Emily was there, as always, sitting in the chair beside her sister's bed. Lily was awake, coloring in a book a nurse had given her. She looked so much better. The swelling in her face had decreased significantly. Her color was returning, her energy slowly coming back. "How are my favorite patients today?" Dr. Pemberton asked with a gentle smile. "Good," Emily said. "Lily ate all her breakfast." "That's wonderful." He checked Lily's chart, then sat down. "Emily, I want you to know your sister is going to be okay. She's getting stronger every day." "Because of the medicine you're giving her?" "Yes, but also because you kept her alive when things were very hard." He paused. "You gave her water, you kept her safe. You didn't give up on her. That matters. Emily looked down. But I couldn't make her better. You weren't supposed to. You were 10 years old. Making her better was the job of doctors and other adults. Dr. Pemberton's voice was gentle but firm. What happened to Lily wasn't your fault. And it wasn't entirely your father's fault either. Emily looked up, surprised. Your sister got sick because your family didn't have what they needed. Food, shelter, medical care, support. Those are things no child should have to provide. But somehow your family slipped through every safety net that's supposed to catch people before they fall this far. So who's responsible? Dr. Pemberton considered the question carefully. A lot of people, your father, for not asking for help when he needed it. The community for not offering help when they saw it was needed. The systems that are supposed to protect children for failing to find you before things got this bad. He paused. We all share that responsibility. After he left, Emily sat quietly, thinking about what he'd said. She thought about all the people who'd walked past them in the park, all the systems that should have noticed when she stopped going to school, all the moments when someone could have helped. And she realized her father had failed them, but he hadn't been the only one. The world had failed them too, slowly, quietly, by looking the other way. David Bennett sat in an interrogation room at the Millbrook police station, his hands folded on the metal table. He looked like a shell of a person, thinner than his photo, unshaven, eyes hollow and distant. Beside him sat his public defender, Rachel Torres, a young attorney who'd been assigned to his case that morning. Detective Laura Brennan sat across from him, her expression unreadable. She turned on the recorder. Mr. Bennett, do you understand why you're here? David nodded slowly. My daughters. I left them. Yes, I need you to tell me in your own words what happened. David's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't even know where to start. Start with your wife, Rebecca. At the mention of her name, David's eyes filled with tears. Rebecca she was everything. She knew how to keep us all together. When she died, I fell apart. I tried to hold on, but I didn't know how to do what she did. I didn't know how to be both of us. What happened after she died? I lost my job, then our apartment. I kept telling myself I just needed one more day to figure things out, that I could handle it. His voice broke, but I couldn't. I was drowning, and I didn't know how to ask for help. Tell me about Lily getting sick. David covered his face with his hands. Her face started swelling, her stomach too. She was so tired all the time. I knew she needed a doctor, but I didn't have money. And I was terrified. Terrified that if I took her to a hospital, they'd see we were homeless. That they'd take my girls away. So what did you do? I looked online. I found these websites that said there were natural ways to help, that you didn't need doctors, that this mixture would reduce swelling and cure infections. He sobbed. I was desperate. I thought I was saving her. What was in the mixture? Herbs, vinegar, things the website said were safe. I followed the instructions exactly, but when I gave it to Lily, he couldn't continue. Laura waited. She cried, David finally said. She said it hurt, and then she got worse. The swelling got worse. She stopped eating, and I realized I was making everything worse, that I was failing her just like I'd failed at everything else. What happened then? David's voice became distant, detached. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Everything just shut down. I told the girls to wait under the tree, that I'd figure it out. But when I started walking, I kept walking. I don't even remember deciding to leave. My mind just went somewhere else. Rachel Torres spoke up. Detective, my client clearly experienced a severe dissociative episode triggered by untreated depression and trauma. Laura nodded. I can see that. She looked at David. Mr. Bennett, you left 2 children alone for 4 days. One of them was critically ill. Do you understand how serious that is? Yes. David looked at her with devastated eyes. I understand. And I'll never forgive myself. I'll never... His voice broke completely. Do you want to see your daughters? David's face crumpled. More than anything in this world. But I don't deserve to. I don't deserve them. That's not for you to decide right now, Laura said. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Mr. Bennett, I've been a detective for 16 years. I've seen people who hurt children deliberately. People who are cruel. You're not one of them. David looked up, surprised. You're a man who broke under impossible circumstances. That doesn't excuse what you did. Your daughter could have died, but it explains it. Laura leaned forward slightly. The question now is, what are you willing to do to get better? Anything, David whispered. Anything, Rachel Torres interjected. Detective, I'd like to propose that my client undergo full psychiatric evaluation. He clearly needs treatment, not just punishment. I agree, Laura said, but he also needs to be held accountable. She stood up. Mr. Bennett, you're going to be formally charged with child endangerment and medical neglect. Given your mental state and the circumstances, the court may consider treatment-focused sentencing. But that decision isn't mine to make. David nodded, defeated. Is there anything you want me to tell Emily and Lily? David's hands trembled. Tell Emily, tell her I'm sorry, tell her I love her more than anything, and tell her, his voice broke, tell her she was braver and stronger than I ever was, and I'm so sorry I made her have to be. Laura wrote it down. I'll make sure she gets that message. As they led David back to holding, Laura stood in the hallway with Officer Reyes. What do you think? Reyes asked. I think he's telling the truth. I think he's a broken man who made catastrophic choices. Laura sighed. But Emily was right, this isn't just about him. It's about every person and system that failed to catch this family before they fell this far. Think the courts will see it that way? I don't know, but I'm going to make sure they have all the facts. Laura looked toward the exit. Because if we only punish David Bennett and don't ask how this happened, we've learned nothing. 4 days after David's arrest, Emily sat in Dr. Sarah Winter's office. A warm room with soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and shelves filled with books and art supplies. But Emily didn't look comfortable. She sat perfectly straight in her chair, back not touching the cushion, hands folded in her lap. Dr. Winters noticed immediately. Emily, you can relax here. You can sit however feels comfortable. Emily didn't move. I'm okay like this. Okay. Dr. Winters smiled gently. Can I ask you something? When did you start sitting that way, so carefully, so properly? Emily thought about it. After Mama died, I wanted to be good, so people wouldn't worry about us. Did it work? Emily shook her head. No, they worried anyway, or they didn't notice at all. Dr. Winters nodded slowly. Emily, I've noticed something about you. You don't act like most 10-year-olds I meet. You act much older, like you've been practicing how to be an adult. Emily looked down. I had to. Someone had to take care of Lily. That's what I mean. You learned very early that the adults around you couldn't always help, so you became the adult. Dr. Winters paused. You practiced being mature, being responsible, being perfect, because you thought that's what would keep you safe. Emily's eyes filled with tears. But it didn't work. Lily still got sick. Daddy still left. Exactly. Because you're not supposed to be able to fix everything. You're a child. And children deserve to be protected, not protectors. But there wasn't anyone else. I know, and that's the tragedy. Dr. Winters leaned forward slightly. Emily, the adults in your life failed you, not just your father. The neighbors who saw you and didn't stop. The school that didn't follow up when you disappeared. The people in the park who assumed someone else was watching. Emily wiped her eyes. Everyone keeps saying it's not my fault. But if it's not my fault, then whose is it? A lot of people's. Your father for not asking for help. The community for not offering it. The systems that should have caught you before you fell. Dr. Winters paused. But you did everything a child could possibly do. You kept your sister alive. Then why do I feel like I did everything wrong? Because you've been carrying responsibility that was never yours to carry. And when you carry something that heavy for that long, You start to believe it's your fault when you can't hold it anymore. Emily was crying now. Real, deep sobs. Dr. Winters moved to sit beside her, not touching, just present. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be a child who's scared and confused. I don't know how, Emily whispered. I don't know how to stop being the one who has to watch everything. We'll figure it out together, one day at a time. After several minutes, Emily's crying slowed. She wiped her face. Can I tell you something? Emily asked quietly. Of course. When Officer Mitchell found us, I was relieved, but I was also scared because I thought I'd failed. Like I should have kept us hidden better. Like letting someone see us meant I'd done something wrong. Dr. Winters felt her chest tighten. Oh, sweetheart, you weren't supposed to be hidden. You were supposed to be seen. But nobody saw us for so long. I know. And that's what needs to change. Not you, but the world around you. Emily nodded slowly, understanding something she couldn't quite put into words yet. She'd spent so long trying to be invisible, trying not to be a burden, trying to handle everything herself. And maybe, just maybe, it was finally okay to stop. 3 months later, the Millbrook Community Center was filled beyond capacity. Every seat was taken. People stood along the walls, crowded in doorways. News cameras lined the back of the room. This wasn't a trial, not yet. It was a community hearing, called by Judge Patricia Lawson to review the circumstances surrounding Emily and Lily Bennett and to determine what should happen next. At the front table sat Judge Lawson, flanked by Margaret Hayes, Detective Laura Brennan, and Dr. Pemberton. To the side sat David Bennett with his public defender, Rachel Torres. He wore a clean shirt but still looked hollow, broken. A few rows back sat Emily, holding Lily's hand. Lily looked so much healthier now. Her face no longer swollen, her eyes bright, her color returned. But she stayed close to Emily, gripping tight. Judge Lawson tapped her gavel. The room fell silent. This hearing has been called to review what happened to the Bennett family and to determine appropriate next steps. I want to remind everyone, these are real children, and this is their real life. We will proceed with respect. Murmurs of agreement. First, I'd like to hear from Dr. Pemberton regarding Lily Bennett's medical condition. Dr. Pemberton stood and approached the microphone. Lily Bennett was admitted with severe malnutrition, untreated infections, and acute kidney stress causing fluid retention. The immediate trigger was a homemade remedy administered by her father. However, the underlying crisis had been developing for months. The room stirred. This child's body didn't fail all at once. Dr. Pemberton continued, his voice firm. It was giving up while the world walked past. The silence was absolute. Several people shifted uncomfortably. Next, Detective Brennan spoke. Our investigation found no evidence of deliberate harm. David Bennett was experiencing severe, untreated depression and experienced a dissociative episode. However, our investigation also revealed that multiple people saw these children over several weeks. Some noticed something seemed wrong, but no one intervened. The room grew tense. Margaret Hayes stood. I've been a social worker for 23 years. This is not a case of intentional cruelty. This is a case of systemic failure. A man who lost everything and had no support, and 2 children who became invisible in plain sight. Judge Lawson nodded. Before we continue, I have a question for everyone here. The room waited. How many of you saw Emily and Lily Bennett before they were found? Silence. Then slowly, hands began to rise across the room. 1, 5, 10, 20. The judge's expression remained calm. And how many of you stopped to ask if they were okay? Every hand went down. The silence that followed was crushing. Judge Lawson let it sit. I see. It appears we have much to discuss. She paused, then said quietly, the prosecution wants to know who is responsible for what happened to Lily. But perhaps the question we should be asking is, who wasn't responsible? Who saw and did nothing? Someone in the audience murmured, almost like a confession. I thought someone was taking care of them. The judge looked directly at the speaker. And when you thought that, did you confirm it? Did you ask? The person shook their head, ashamed. Judge Lawson turned to Emily. Emily Bennett, I understand you'd like to say something. You don't have to. But if you want to, we're ready to listen. Emily looked at Lily, who squeezed her hand and whispered, It's okay, Emmy. Emily stood slowly. The entire room held its breath. She walked to the microphone, her heart pounding. This was it. The moment everything would finally be said. Emily stood at the microphone, small and quiet in front of the packed room. Every eye was on her. Cameras, strangers. Her father, who sat with his head bowed, unable to look at her. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She just stood there, perfectly straight, hands at her sides, like she'd been practicing this moment for months. Judge Lawson spoke gently. Take your time, Emily. Emily looked out at the crowd, then she began, her voice steady and clear. My name is Emily Bennett. I'm 10 years old. She paused. And everyone keeps asking the same question. What happened to us? Who did this to my sister? The room was completely still. My dad tried to take care of us by himself after my mom died. He tried really hard, but he didn't know how to do what she did. He didn't know how to ask for help. Emily's voice was calm, measured. When Lily got sick, he got scared. He gave her something he thought would help, but it made her worse. She looked at her father. He made a really big mistake, but we didn't get sick just because of that mistake. Emily turned back to the audience. We got sick because nobody noticed we needed help. Not for weeks, not for months. Her voice grew stronger. We were in the park every day, under that big tree. Lots of people walked past us, some of them saw us more than once. But they all kept walking. A woman in the third row covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. I tried to take care of Lily because I thought that's what kids did when there was nobody else. I sat up straight. I was polite. I didn't ask for anything. I thought if I was really good, someone would notice. Emily paused, letting that sink in. But nobody did. Not until Lily was so sick she almost died. The silence was absolute. Everyone wants to know who did this, Emily said quietly. But maybe, she took a breath, maybe the question should be, who didn't do anything? The words landed like stones. Emily looked around the room, at the people who'd walked past, at the systems that had failed, at the community that had assumed. My dad should have asked for help, but nobody offered either. The people who saw us thought someone else was watching. The school didn't check when I disappeared. The neighbors didn't notice when we lost our home. Her voice softened but remained firm. I'm not saying my dad didn't do anything wrong. He did. But he wasn't the only one. Emily delivered her final line, the one that would echo long after the hearing ended. I wasn't asking for someone to save us. I just wanted someone to stop, to notice, to care. The room erupted, not in argument, but in something deeper. Recognition, guilt, understanding. Emily walked back to her seat. Lily threw her arms around her, and Emily finally let herself cry. Real, full tears. Judge Lawson waited for silence to return. Then she spoke. Thank you, Emily. That took tremendous courage. She looked out at the crowd. I think we've heard enough to understand what happened here. This wasn't about one villain. It was about a family that fell apart while a community looked away. About systems that arrived too late. About people who assumed someone else would act. The judge's voice was firm but not harsh. We have work to do. Not just in this courtroom, but in our community. Because Emily is right. The question isn't just who did this, it's who didn't do anything when they could have. She looked at David. Mr. Bennett, you will be held accountable. But you're not the only one responsible for what happened to your daughters. Then she looked at the audience. The rest of you need to ask yourselves, what will you do differently next time? Sarah Mitchell stood at the back of the room, tears streaming down her face. They were there, she thought. Right there in plain sight. And we all kept walking. Until a 10-year-old girl had the courage to tell the truth no one wanted to hear. 3 months later. The autumn leaves were falling in Millbrook, covering the streets in shades of gold and red. The town looked the same as always. Quiet, orderly, familiar. But something had changed. Something small but significant. Emily and Lily lived with the Calloway family now, a temporary foster placement while the court worked through David's case. Mrs. Calloway was patient and kind, with graying hair and a warm smile. Mr. Calloway worked at the library and brought home books for the girls. It wasn't perfect. Emily still woke up sometimes in the middle of the night, checking to make sure Lily was breathing. She still sat too straight at the dinner table. She still chose her words carefully, but she was learning, slowly. Dr. Winters saw her twice a week. "You don't have to be perfect," she reminded Emily gently. "You just have to be you." Lily was healing faster. She laughed now. She played. She attended preschool and had made friends. Sometimes Emily watched her sister and felt both joy and sadness. Joy that Lily was okay, sadness that she herself couldn't remember what it felt like to be that free. David was in a residential psychiatric treatment facility as part of his plea agreement. He'd pled guilty to child endangerment and medical neglect. The judge had sentenced him to supervised probation with mandatory treatment instead of prison. It was controversial. Some people thought he deserved jail. Others thought the sentence was appropriate. Emily didn't know what she thought. She was allowed supervised visits with her father once a month. The first one had been painful. David had cried. Emily had stayed quiet. Lily had asked, "Why did you leave us?" David had no answer that made sense, but slowly, visit by visit, they were learning to talk again. Not as they were before. That family was gone, but as something new, something broken but trying to heal. At Riverside Park, things had changed too. After the hearing, a group of citizens formed the Millbrook Family Support Network. They created a system where volunteers checked in on families who might be struggling, not intrusively, but with genuine care. The elementary school hired 2 additional social workers and created a strict protocol for following up on absent students. Officer Sarah Mitchell helped develop training for police on recognizing families in crisis. "Look for the quiet ones," she told recruits. "The ones trying not to be noticed. Those are the ones who need us most." Near the old oak tree, someone had placed a small memorial stone. It read, "For all the children who waited to be seen, may we never look away again." One Saturday afternoon, a woman who frequented the park began carrying candy in her pocket, not to give away, but as a reminder to stop, to notice, to ask. She wasn't the only one. Small changes were happening all over Millbrook. Some people helped. Others still walked past. But now, at least, there were more people watching. Emily and Lily visited the park with Mrs. Calloway one autumn day. Lily ran ahead, chasing leaves. Mrs. Calloway stayed back, giving Emily space. Emily stood near the oak tree, looking at the memorial stone. She thought about all the people who'd walked past, all the chances to be seen, all the days of waiting. And she thought about the people who finally did stop. Sarah, Dr. Pemberton, Margaret, Dr. Winters. It hadn't been soon enough, but it had been something. Mrs. Calloway approached gently. "You okay, sweetheart?" Emily nodded. "Yeah." "Ready to go?" In a minute, Emily watched Lily play, free, happy, safe. And for the first time in a very long time, Emily felt something close to peace, not because everything was fixed, but because she wasn't alone anymore. Neither was Lily. Some people had started watching, and that, imperfect as it was, made all the difference. 6 months later, Emily sat on a bench at Riverside Park, watching Lily play on the swings. The spring sun was warm. Birds sang in the trees. Children laughed all around. It was an ordinary, beautiful day. Lily pumped her legs, going higher and higher, her red hair flying behind her. "Emmy, look. Look how high I'm going." Emily smiled. "I see you, Lil. You're amazing." Mrs. Calloway sat beside Emily, holding 2 ice cream cones. She handed one to Emily. "Thought you might like this." "Thank you." Emily took it carefully. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily play. For the first time, Emily didn't count exits. She didn't scan for danger. She didn't watch every person who walked past. She was just there, present. Mrs. Calloway noticed. You seem different today. Emily thought about it. I think I'm not as scared anymore. That's good, sweetheart. That's really good. Emily looked around the park. Families were everywhere, playing, laughing, being together, and she noticed something that made her chest feel lighter. A woman walking past saw a little boy sitting alone on a bench. She stopped. Hey there, are you okay? Where's your grown-up? The boy pointed toward the restrooms. My dad's in there. The woman smiled. Okay, I'll wait with you until he comes back. She sat down beside the boy, patient and kind. Emily watched, her heart full. Someone had stopped. Someone had noticed. Someone had cared. A few minutes later, an elderly man dropped his walking stick. A teenager immediately stopped to help him pick it up. A young mother struggled with a stroller on the curb. Two people moved to help without being asked. Small moments, small kindnesses, people noticing, people stopping. Lily ran over, breathless and beaming. Emmy, can we come back tomorrow? Emily pulled her into a hug. Yeah, we can come back whenever you want. Lily settled onto Emily's lap, content. Mrs. Calloway smiled at both of them. And Emily realized something profound. She wasn't watching Lily out of fear anymore. She was just watching, the way a sister should, with love, not terror. As the afternoon wore on, Emily thought about everything that had brought them here. The oak tree where they'd waited, the hospital, the hearing, the long, hard months of healing. She thought about her father, slowly getting better in treatment, about the visits that were still awkward but getting easier, about the hope, fragile but real, that someday they might be a family again, different, broken in places, but together. She thought about all the people who'd walked past them, and all the people who'd finally stopped, and she understood. The world hadn't been magically fixed, but it was different now, better, because people were paying attention. Not everyone, not perfectly, but enough. Emily looked at Lily one more time. Her sister was laughing with a new friend, completely carefree, safe, seen, protected, and Emily thought, this time nobody needs to scream for help. This time people are watching, not just one person, many. And that simple truth, that shift from indifference to attention, changed everything. Emily leaned back against the bench, ice cream melting in her hand, sun warm on her face. For the first time in her life, she wasn't carrying the weight of the world. She was just being 10, and someone else was watching. The end final message. Sometimes the greatest danger for a family isn't cruelty. It's the pain that grows in silence, while everyone believes that someone else will act. This time, may we all choose to stop, to notice, to care, because the children waiting to be seen are counting on us,